Brooke Hogan asked to be taken off her dad, Hulk Hogan's will.
Yeah.
So she won't get anything from the estate.
This is shocking.
Brooke Hogan did not simply abandon her father's wealth. She left years of suffering behind. She's finally speaking up about why now. Brooke claims that her father wasn't who everyone thought he was. A K can accomplish anything. That's how we'll put it. Your preconceived notions about Hulk Hogan may be completely destroyed by what she is currently disclosing. Let me explain. The will debate and the terrible truth. The wrestling community lamented the passing of one of its biggest heroes when Hulk Hogan passed away on July 24, 2025. At the age of 71, millions of fans throughout the world, celebrities and other wrestlers, all paid their respects. However, his own daughter, Brooke Hogan, was conspicuously absent from the public grief. And after the Hulkster's demise, a startling discovery surfaced that would completely alter our preconceived notions about the Hogan family's history. Only a few days after Hogan's funeral, the shocking news broke. Brooke Hogan would not receive any of her father's estimated $25 million fortune since she had proactively asked to be taken out of his will in 2023, long before he passed away. Being written out in rage was not the situation here. A daughter who could no longer bear to be linked to her father's wealth made this conscious decision.
Hogan asked to be taken off her dad, Hulk Hogan's will.
Yeah.
So she won't get anything from the estate.
This is shocking. Sources say Brooke made the decision to be taken off of the will due to mistrust of the people around Hulk, and she was fearing for future legal or financial conflict.
However, Brooke's husband, Steve Alexi, made the truly shocking discovery, offering hitherto unheard of insight into the sinister reality of the Hogan family's wealth. In an exclusive interview that rocked the wrestling world, Alexi disclosed that Brooke's dignity was sacrificed in order to build Hogan's fortune, mentioning in particular the Gawker settlement funds that resulted from a racial tape controversy involving his own daughter. A picture of systematic exploitation that went well beyond normal family dysfunction is painted by the heartbreaking details, according to Alexi. A significant portion of Hogan's fortune came from the $31 million Gawker settlement, which was related to racial comments he made about Brooke's ex-boyfriend. He explained that the wealth came at my wife's expense, dignity, stressing that neither an apology nor restitution were ever offered to the actual victims of the incident. This information challenges our preconceived notions about Hogan's achievement and financial recovery. His daughter, who had publicly backed him and whose relationships had been harmed by his remarks, had nothing but continuous humiliation and dysfunctional family life while the wrestling legend was successful in his lawsuit for breach of privacy and was able to rebuild his fortune. For years, the distance between the family had been growing. In 2022, Brooke married Stephen Alexi, a former NHL player, and had fraternal twins Oliver and Molly. Events in January 2025 that Hogan was unaware of because of the ongoing conflict. Imagine being so far from your father that he is unaware of the existence of your grandkids. Over the course of several years, Brooke and Hogan's friendship soured, and they haven't spoken since September 2023. The catastrophic nature of their relationship was made clear in their last discussion. After nearly 25 surgeries, Brooke voiced concern about Hogan's deteriorating health and advised him to put his family first. Hogan disregarded her advice and carried on with his demanding schedule in spite of her pleadings. The disclosures regarding the psychological torture that had caused Brooke to leave were even more heartbreaking. Brooke accused both parents of severe verbal and psychological abuse in a public speech in March 2025. Since childhood, asserting that it destroyed her life and that she had lost her confidence and sense of self. Her claims that she had been coerced into publicly defending inappropriate behavior while others made money off of her pain and humiliation, however, were arguably the most devastating of all when we realize how her loyalty had been used for financial and PR gain during her father's most contentious times. this comment assumes a terrifying new significance. Earlier in 2025, when Linda Hogan shared a tearful video bemoaning the family's worst mess, noting Brooke's secret marriage and twins without telling her parents the family crisis had burst into the public.
My family is in the worst mess. Brooke doesn't talk to us. She's had twins. She got married. She didn't tell us. She had a huge fight with Terry. I don't know how that reflected onto me, but she cut me out too. I haven't talked to her for almost 8 years.
Brooke's reaction to Hogan's passing was both tragic and illuminating. Her homage demonstrated the depth of their friendship in spite of everything that had transpired. "My dad's blood runs through my veins," she wrote. "His gaze shines through my kids, and our relationship is unbreakable, even in his last moments. We shared a bond that went beyond words and lasted a lifetime." However, she also stated unequivocally that their arrangement was essential to her emotional well-being. Brooke explained, instead of a heated argument, Hogan confided in her over a series of intimate phone conversations about his personal and professional difficulties. She told how, as his health deteriorated, she went to over 25 procedures with him but felt abruptly cut off, as though a force field surrounded him. Brooke described polite arguments that emotionally taxed her, and how she stood back to protect her emotions, particularly during her higher-risk pregnancy with twins.
So we were told that Brooke's focus was always protecting her dad. She never wanted personal gain. She's obviously deeply saddened about her father's death and feels hurt he didn't fully trust her in the end. They had some issues.
Strong discussions concerning money, family loyalty, and the real costs of growing up in the spotlight have been triggered by the will scandal. While some have condemned Brooke as ungrateful for turning down family money, others have hailed her as mature or principled, reading her decision as rejecting a harmful heritage. It appears that even in rejection, there is some vestige of the father-daughter tie that had appeared impenetrable. As Brooke is still scheduled to get money from a life insurance trust designated especially for her children's college education despite being removed from the will. But in order to fully see how this awful circumstance came to be, we must return to the turning point. The controversy that laid the groundwork for this final betrayal and permanently changed the relationships of the Hogan family. Because Brooke's revelation on the creation of her father's wealth would shock her to her very being and make her face a terrible reality about the man she had defended for years. Brooke's sad defense and the racial scandal. We must look at the terrible incident that not only ruined her father's reputation, but also showed how her personal devotion and dignity had been used as leverage for his financial benefit if we are to comprehend why Brooke Hogan turned down millions of money. Millions of people looked up to him as an all-American hero, but the story starts with a hidden recording that revealed his darkest side. Excerpts from the tape that would alter everything were released by the gossip website Gawker in 2012. The video revealed Hogan's relationship with his pal Bubba, the Love Sponge's wife, Heather Clem. The recording was made in 2006 sans Hogan's information at a time when his life was already in ruins. His marriage was failing. Hogan was suffering from extreme melancholy after his son. Nick was engaged in a devastating vehicle accident that left a buddy with brain damage. At first, it appeared that the breach of privacy was the main focus of the controversy. Hogan filed a $100 million lawsuit against Gawker, alleging that his personal rights had been violated by the release of the private video. Gawker Media would essentially go bankrupt as a result of the case's $140 million jury award, which was later settled for $1 million. Tech entrepreneur Peter Thiel, who had a personal grudge against Gawker, provided funding for the legal triumph. However, what the general public was unaware of, and what Brooke herself would discover much later, that the tapes contained even more harmful material. Despite the fact that the controversy greatly boosted Hogan's future wealth, Brooke was never given a direct apology or compensation and was kept in the dark about the full transcripts. according to her husband Steve Alexis's later disclosures. The true destruction occurred in 2015 when the entire tape's audio was leaked, exposing remarks that would shock the wrestling community and ruin Hogan's meticulously constructed reputation. Hogan frequently used racial epithets in the audio when talking about Brooks' dating history, particularly her relationship with a black man. I mean, if she was going to some, I'd rather have her marry an 80ft tall N worth $100 million. Like a basketball player, Hogan said on the released recording. Additionally, he said, "I suppose we're all a little racist." It was a devastating and quick response. Hogan's contract was immediately canceled by WWE, and he was expelled from their Hall of Fame. Deals for endorsements fell through. In the industry he helped create, the guy who had been the face of wrestling's popular appeal was suddenly a household name. Observing Brooks' reaction to her father's disgrace was possibly the most devastating of all. Even though his remarks were extremely cruel and personal, specifically referring to her and her relationships, Brooke originally supported her father with a devotion that now appears to have been fatally misplaced.
Easy target. This is what this business is all about, and we know that. I don't support what he said. But he's my dad. I love him. When you're mad and when you're at the lowest point in your life and you're mad at somebody, you just choose ill-fitting words.
Even in the midst of her father's most harmful actions, Brooke showed the loyalty that would characterize their relationship for years to come. In the same interview,
Who he is, though. He's not racist. I definitely would not want things that I say behind closed doors, and I'm sure you wouldn't or anybody else watching. Nobody would want their lowest moment to be filmed and aired for the world.
Brooke's complicated emotional state is revealed in this defense of her father. This was a young woman who had grown up in the spotlight, who had based her own career in part on her family's notoriety, and who was now being expected to criticize the man who had served as both her provider and her guardian.
First of all, that's who I am. I'm loyal. Like, if you're honest with me, it doesn't matter. I will love you. I'll stand up for you till the end. People can have differing opinions, right? Like, I'm not God. I can't judge. I can't tell you if you're right or wrong. I'm not going to judge somebody for sinning differently than I do.
But now that we know, her defense is all the more heartbreaking. According to family sources, Brooke's relationship with her then-boyfriend suffered greatly as a result of the racial remark controversy. It's also caused her music career to stagnate. The public disclosure of her father's remarks was destroying the very connections about which he had made racist remarks. The discovery that Brooke's argument might have been predicated on inaccurate information is even more upsetting. Alexi claims that Brooke supported Hogan without fully understanding the racist words on the recording, as the complete sheet was not given access to the transcripts. In hindsight, this makes her loyalty and forgiveness even more tragic, because it implies that her public support of her father was founded on deceit and manipulation. Hogan appeared to be grappling with the full ramifications of his remarks at the same time. In the end, he issued a public apology, stating that the language was improper and at odds with his values, and stressing that all people, regardless of race, should be treated equally. However, a lot of people thought the apology was more about getting caught than it was about having real regret.
He takes responsibility for it, and he knows. He's like, I messed up. Like, this is the repercussions of what.
The fact that we now know how the controversy would ultimately aid in Hogan's financial comeback adds to the tragedy of this time. A sizable amount of Hogan's eventual $25 million fortune came from the Gawker deal, which ultimately brought him $31 million after legal fees. Essentially, Hogan was receiving payment in exchange for his racist remarks against his own daughter. As Brooke thought back on her connection with her father in subsequent years, she would not overlook this painful irony. The individual who initially humiliated her had benefited from the very controversy that did so and harmed her personal ties. He had benefited from his own intolerance while using her loyalty as a shield to preserve his reputation.
If I had to go through what he did, I don't know if I would have, I probably would have just broken. I told him, I said, people aren't stupid. They have a good gut instinct on who people are, and you're a great dad, and everybody messes.
Following sensitivity training and more public apologies, Hogan was finally reinstated by WWE in 2018. However, the harm to his familial ties turned out to be considerably more permanent than the harm to his career. Brooke would later realize that her relationships, emotional health, and dignity were all directly impacted by her father's financial recovery. The man she had so fervently defended had used her humiliation as the basis for his comeback, used her allegiance as a means of his own healing without ever realizing the consequences of his actions. This insight ultimately resulted in disintegration of their relationship and her extraordinary choice to completely distance herself from his wealth. However, in order to comprehend how they got to this position, we must look at their early years together, the heyday of reality TV stardom, which initially revealed the problematic relationships that would ultimately cause the Hogan family to fall apart. The golden, yet not so golden, years. The Hogan family appeared to embody the American dream at one point, before the scandals, the estrangement, and the startling choice to turn down millions of dollars in inheritance. From the perspective of reality TV, they seemed to be wrestling royalty, a devoted family navigating the special difficulties of celebrity without sacrificing their relationships. However, as we now know, the dysfunction that underpinned those idyllic years would ultimately cause the family to fall apart. The VH1 reality show Hogan Knows Best, which ran from 2005 to 2007, introduced the audience to the complexities of the Hogan family, with Hogan as the father who would stop at nothing to keep his kids safe. The show presented what appeared to be a loving but overly protective family. The show offered viewers a unique glimpse into the true life of Brooke Ellen Bulla, who was born on May 5, 1988, and grew up as the daughter of one of the most well-known personalities in American popular culture.
To wind down, phase one of Hulk Hogan winding down, and the reason is family, a 1-year-old son, a 3-year-old daughter, and a wife that's put up with all this craziness for so long.
Hogan portrayed himself in those early interviews as a loving family man who was prepared to put his kids before his business. He looked sincere in his desire to be a hands-on father and talked about the value of being there for his family.
Really into that, it's like my senses all come alive when I'm with my wife and kids,
Are you a real Mr. Mom? You change diapers?
Oh yeah, I'm terrible. I really am overprotective, especially with my children.
However, what appeared to be protective parenting on TV was really a window into more serious problems with boundaries and control. Episodes emphasized how Hogan meddled in Brooke's romantic life by putting a GPS tracker on her vehicle and threatening the choreographer for her music video for making inappropriate movements. In reality, what was portrayed as humorous overprotectiveness was a pattern of domineering conduct that would persist throughout Brooke's life.
Feel growing up like people wanted to be your friend just so that they can come over and see your 18,000 square foot house and be around your dad?
Yeah, I will say just in general, I think when you're in the position that we're in, it happens, it still happens. People think that it's something else. And that's the thing that I think is so misconstrued or misunderstood about fame, right? Is that they think immediately if you're famous, you must be rich, or immediately if you're a daughter of somebody that you just have it easy.
Additionally, Brooke was subjected to a degree of public scrutiny from the reality show that would follow her for the rest of her life as a larger-than-life wrestling icon who is credited with turning WWE into a popular entertainment company. Hogan gained notoriety in the 1980s and without necessarily choosing it for herself. His daughter was now thrown into the same spotlight. Brooke was pursuing her own entertainment career at this time, breaking into the music industry with the help of her father's resources and contacts. in addition to touring with singers like Hilary Duff and making occasional appearances in wrestling. Plots: Brooke recorded albums such as Undiscovered 2006 and The Redemption 2009. The celebrity of her father was a boon and a bane. Although it provided opportunities, it also meant that everyone saw her actions through the prism of being the daughter of Hulk Hogan. However, underneath Theon, the surface of this ostensibly prosperous family, fissures were already starting to appear. The family was shocked by a string of tragic events that would permanently alter their dynamics in the year that Hogan knows best ended. John Graziano, Nick Hogan's friend, suffered a traumatic brain injury in a severe car accident in 2007. The family was subjected to harsh public and legal scrutiny after the tragedy, with many people wondering if Hogan's parenting style had played a role in his son's careless actions. The family received even more heartbreaking news that same year. Linda claimed violence and infidelity when she filed for divorce. The family's pleasant television persona would be challenged by the divorce processes, which would uncover startling facts about their private lives.
They are still reeling that they can't get their feet back on planet Earth, and I can't get my life back on track either. I don't know, what am I supposed to do, start over now? I'm 57, and you know, I don't know where I fit in this world anymore.
Hogan's single quotes S claimed affair with Brooke's best friend, Christian Plant, may have caused the most harm to Brooke personally. It was a deep-seated betrayal. In addition to her parents' failing marriage, her father's transgression had a direct impact on her trust and interpersonal connections. After the divorce was finalized in 2009, Linda was awarded $3 million in property, 40% of Hogan's businesses, and more than 70% of his liquid assets. Although the settlement had a catastrophic financial impact on Hogan, the family may have suffered an even greater emotional toll.
When we decided to go our own ways, it was pretty much an amicable decision because, you know, he really needed to kind of grow and find his own friends and his own, you know, have his own apartment and have his own life and figure out how to do it.
As claims of infidelity, violence, and marital dissolution were being made between Hogan and Hecto and Linda, the family's private affairs were being made public. While Hogan accused Linda of narcissism, Linda accused him of being an addict and a total liar in recordings. Brooke was caught in the crossfire of her parents' growingly destructive relationship throughout these turbulent years, as her family disintegrated in the most visible manner imaginable. She was compelled to take sides, respond to inquiries from the media, and attempt to keep things somewhat normal. Now it looked like a cruel joke, the reality show that had brought them fame. Court filings, tabloid headlines, and increasingly acrimonious public statements from both parents were methodically destroying the image of the protective, loving father who would stop at nothing to safeguard his children. However, the public was unaware that a more serious controversy was covertly developing at the same time. During this period, Hogan had intercourse with Heather Clem, who is his friend Bubba, the Love Sponge's wife. Unbeknownst to him, encounters were being videotaped. Those heyday days of reality TV fame take on a considerably darker hue when seen in the light of everything that would come after. The overly cautious parent who followed his daughter around. The domineering father who meddled in every facet of his kids' lives. The man who would have an affair with his daughter's friend and thereby betray her confidence. The entertainment aspect of reality television obscured all of these warning indicators. The turmoil that appeared to be typical of famous families was actually the start of a history of betrayal and exploitation that would ultimately lead Brooke to make the historic decision to completely distance herself from her father's wealth. Early on, the seeds of the eventual family disintegration had already been sown. Days of reality TV. They simply hadn't developed into the toxic tree that would ultimately destroy the Hogan family. The golden years were anything but. They marked the start of the end. A skillfully constructed delusion that emphasized the dysfunction and abuse that would ultimately drive a daughter to decide between her own dignity and millions of dollars. And as we've seen, Brooke Hogan made her own decision. When given the option, look at the suggested cards on your screen for more in-depth videos like this one.